Hey team, and welcome. I'm your host, Carrie, creator of Mother Life, your destination for all things real talk and parenting. This is the IRL group chat, where we talk about the wild balancing act of pursuing careers and passions while also doing our best to show up for our kids. Join me every week as I sit down with some badass parents in my closet and we talk about their careers, kids, and relationships and all of the weird shit that comes up when you're trying to balance the seemingly impossible. Being loved. The simple act of feeling loved and cared for in childhood has so many positive knock-on effects later in life. Research points to better physical and mental health, stronger social bonds, and increased resilience. To pile on to the love fest, it's not just the love of parents that can make an impact on our long-term well-being. There's a whole body of research that looks at the impact of relationships with extended family members on kids. How it can provide an additional layer of belonging, being in touch with their heritage, feeling loved. Like so many IRL connections in the digital era, our relationships with extended family are in crisis, the likes of which Western civilization has never really seen before. Some of that is due simply to distance. So many people move away from where they were born and start over, making family reunions and frequent and regular communication more labor-intensive. But some of the crisis is also due to these polarized political times, how far away we can feel from each other ideologically, and how that rift can make the simple act of loving each other that much harder. Our villages, chosen or otherwise, are limping along, and yet we need the village now more than ever as parents face crazy demands on their time, as we know this generation of parents is parenting more intensely than ever before, spending more time with their kids than ever before, and the demands in the workplace are also more unforgiving than ever before. Today's guest had me thinking about the village because she is the village. While never having kids of her own, Laura Krafft is the super aunt. 22 nieces and nephews, and those are just the official ones. She's that relative who shows up with a high degree of competency and gusto to the task of helping parents raise their kids, the task of loving their kids. It's often those who don't have the village they'd hope for whatever those reasons might be, that I think see the value in the village so profoundly. They see what a gift it is, not just because it's free babysitting or an extra pair of hands, but because you get to watch your kids form these beautiful relationships with people who will be a part of their story for their whole lives, who will help them to feel loved, be resilient, and be better off in the long run. It's a beautiful thing. Talking to Laura made me ask myself in this chapter of my life if I'm fully utilizing the village that is ready to step up for me. Sometimes I feel bad asking. I don't want to impose. I feel guilty. I can't do it all myself. But seeing the joy that being an integral part of so many people's villages has brought to Laura has made me reconsider all of that. And further still, it makes me excited to be able to pay it forward in the future. Laura Krafft is a comedic writer and actress. Her work comes to us by way of a storied era of improv in Chicago, coming up with comedians like Rachel Dratch, Tina Fey, Adam McKay, Horatio Sanz, and so many more. When she landed in LA, her work moved from the stage to the screen, and she's been a writer for some of our favorite shows for more than 20 years, including well over 300 episodes of the beloved Colbert Report. Enjoy this hang and remember that good improv and good living both depend on hyping up and showing up for the people around us. Welcome to the closet, Laura.
Thank you.
Are you ready to go?
I guess so.
I have been excited about talking to you basically from the moment I met you because your eyes light up when you talk about your job as aunt and the million nieces and nephews you have. How many?
22.
It's just crazy.
But 22 that are like biological, and then I have like a couple
Extras? Bonus?
Well, I have godchildren, but then I also have like my cousins. My cousin has 2 sons who just call me Auntie Laura.
Yeah.
I actually, my nieces and nephews call me Auntie Pretty because when they were babies, like when they first started happening, I was in college and there were 4 little boys who were just born like bump, 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 bump. Like one sister adopted her first baby and then got pregnant with her second baby. She'd been trying for a long time and she lived in London, and she was finally successful and got like the in vitro worked right after she adopted a baby. So she has two boys who are now men who are 8 months apart. And then my another sister has gave birth to her first son, who was 9 days older than the adopted baby. And so those three were like in a little clump. And then there's that sister had another baby like a year and a half later. So there's 4 little boys who are like, I have a lot of pictures of them like all wearing like capes, like that thing where there's like a clump of like the little cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of the dream. And for my kids, they have some cousins who are like close-ish in age, but then the rest are like a lot older than them.
Yeah.
And like that's cute too in a different way. But in my head growing up, I always had this idea of like a wild mob of kids running around being filthy together.
Yeah.
And it hasn't totally panned out like that, but it makes like for holidays, for instance, it's not as like rambunctious as I thought it was gonna be because everybody's kids are at different stages.
And it doesn't matter when you're like in your 40s. Like they might get rambunctious like when you're an old lady.
Yeah.
It's going to be like mayhem with their kid, like.
Yes.
But when you're young, it's like the difference between like even like now, like, let's say friends of mine who I think of as sort of the same age as me, but like maybe I'm 8 years older, and they'll mention a movie or something, and I'll think like, well, I was in grad school when that came out.
Yeah.
I didn't get as fixated on, I wasn't at prom then. I went to prom. My prom was a different era, kind of.
You had good fashion at your prom.
It's come back. So that says something about it.
Yeah, that's like a good. And then the other reason why I was like, we need to go back into the life of Laura Krafft is you grew up in the golden era came up in the golden era of improv in Chicago.
I did.
Which is like a time that now, especially with the proliferation of podcasts by famous comedians, has become this real like storied golden era that people look back on with much fondness and sort of wish they were there. It's like wishing you were a hippie.
Yeah.
It really, it's like missing a time.
So true. And it's like, I also come from a family that like, they're not funny. Yeah. And there's people who are characters, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're like
funny on purpose.
Yeah. Not fun. Like just, they're very strong characters. And I have a bunch of nieces and nephews who I have like little lists of people who I think will be comedy writers or could be comedy writers if they chose. And it's always the kid who the parents don't understand. Yeah. And they're oftentimes very quiet. Like a lot of comedy people are quiet, and a lot of them, like a lot of the women, were the good girls who were like, I think that's sort of a thing. Like people are either very educated, rule following, the good girls, like, and by that I don't mean sexually. I mean like they were quiet and like stayed clean and
got good grades,
and and that was definitely me. And but just like I was weird, and my mom saw that I was kind of weird, and she was weird, and this is how weird my mom was. My mom was so weird in such a great way. I mean, she was like bananas. She was like alone with 7 kids. My dad was always at work all day.
7 kids.
7 kids with a wide age span. So she was like a mom for so long. And I'm the 6th, and I have a little brother who's the 7th, and then my next oldest brother. And we called ourselves Family B because the difference between how she raised the older kids and how she raised us, I mean, there's an 18-year age span. So,
oh my God.
She, so she was very relaxed with us, and we got to know her more like as a person than as a neurotic, like, like she was like a victim of like the Mother's Little Helper era, like where she was like on uppers during the day and downers at night. She was really bananas when I was little. She was just crazy. But I think a lot of the moms in my neighborhood, there's a lot of big families and a lot of
7 kids.
House pride. So our house was like so clean, and you'd put something in the laundry at night and it would be like ironed in at the bottom of your bed, like in the morning when you woke up. Like she was
grinding through it.
Grinding.
Now, wait, so on the pod, we're very big about birth order and like identities around birth order.
It's everything.
So talk to me about, how do you identify, since you're 6th of 7th, I think this is maybe the largest family that somebody's come from, I think. Has to be. How do you identify as a youngest, as a middle?
It's kind of interesting that you say that because I am there's Family B. Family A is like the older 5 kids, and they're all 2 years apart. And my mom had miscarriages in between each one of them. My mom was pregnant like a million times. And we're not Catholic. and there's no like ethical or moral thing. She just was like baby crazy, and I don't know, it was the times. I also think she was kind of competitive with her sister who had 8 kids, and I don't know. There's just, I also like back then it wasn't that unusual. I'm from Evanston, Illinois, and there's a lot of big families when I was growing up. It wasn't like, oh, that's the Kraffts. I mean, we had the most on our block, but I think the Berries, who were 2 doors over, had like 6 or maybe 8. I don't know.
It's
They're older
so
than me.
many people.
So many people and
So many bodies.
so many bodies. And honestly, I think big families are a bad, like now that was the era, but I have 2 sisters with 6 kids each. And I just think it's really like nobody, I mean, I love everybody. Obviously there was nobody you would want to give back, but in terms of like what kind of family, the world,
The dynamic overall.
it's crazy. So birth order is everything. So I'm when I was growing up, I was like the baby.
Yeah.
And I really looked up to my older siblings, especially my older sisters and my oldest brother. And I, was like so sweet. And I dreamed of what I could do to help make their lives easier. I loved to like go down to the basement and get their laundry. I loved to like just everything they did. I was just like, oh my God, they're amazing. I tried to walk like them.
Yeah.
Like my oldest sister, I would try to walk like her and like talk like her. And, sometimes I'll still find myself like muscle memory sort of like this.
Cute.
Is sort of what she does. And so I'm the baby for that. And my oldest brother is 12 years older than me. Then 10 years older, 8 years older, 6 years older, 4 years older. But my brother, who's 4 years older, was 3 years older in school. So we were in school together, and we went to college. He was at Purdue when I was at Indiana, and he was a senior when I was a freshman. And we were really, 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 really close. And we grew up, when we were little, we shared a room. I shared a room with him and my little brother. And then when we got older, my mom said, people were moving out. She was like, you can move upstairs. And we didn't want it. We didn't want it.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, we were really close. And we didn't even really fight. We fought like verbally as grown-ups, but just in sort of like a pushy, like, no, we're going to do this. Not like in a deep fighting way.
Yeah.
But so then what happened was my older siblings started moving out and growing up, and then they would come back to visit. And I was also very quiet, and I didn't really talk much really at all till I was like 5, to the point where they sort of wondered
what was going on.
And then, then I started talking a lot. And my sisters, I remember coming back and just being really frustrated with like me not wanting to go downstairs and get their laundry and saying to my mom, what happened? She was so sweet. And my mom saying, yeah, she grew up. She's growing up. Like, that's what happens. And
she's a person now. She doesn't need your approval.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. So, but in B, so that's family A. Family B.
This is so funny. Family B. Okay.
So
and
family B,
you're the oldest.
No, I'm the middle.
Are you the middle?
It's my brother Andrew, me, and my little brother David. And we called ourselves Family B. We made T-shirts that say Family B.
So
we have like nicknames. I'm Lala. And then, but really there's also a Family C that's just my little brother and I. Because when I was 10, my parents built a house in the country. And we spent every weekend and every summer at that house, just my little brother and I.
Wow.
And my mom. So we are really close. And I was definitely the oldest sister. Like not even that long ago, he would call me and say like, what kind of music do I like? I'd say, you like this, you like that. Like, I helped him write his papers. He would call me, and I remember once he was in college, so I was in grad school, and he was like, hey, it was like, I don't know, almost midnight. And I was like, he called me and I was like, what's up? And he said, hey, nothing. I was just thinking about Hamlet. Like, I don't know, like, do you think he has like a fatal flaw? And like, I don't know, what would be like 3 examples? I was like, David, when is your paper due? And he's like, tomorrow. I was like, his fatal flaw is procrastination. So that's
funny.
Yeah. So that's what.
I was just thinking about Hamlet.
Just like kind of curious. Like, you read it, right? You think he has a fatal flaw? Like, what do you think his fatal flaw is? It's like really funny.
So funny. Well, that's really interesting because you have had so many different experiences within the same family.
Yeah.
And you also watched people be parented differently within the same family.
So differently. And also just seeing I think I really understood my mom and dad much more than, also I'm a writer and I'm observant. And I'm always thinking of dynamics about like I see everything. And it drives people crazy because people will say like, oh, this thing happened. I'm like, yeah, it's because this happened when you
Of
were
course, yeah.
16. And, and in fact, one of my sisters was saying, because TV is shifting so much job-wise. And she was like, maybe you become a therapist.
I was going to say, it's a very similar skill set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I was thinking about all my ex-boyfriends who were terrible at relationships, who are now therapists. Like so many people I know.
Oh my
who
God.
I value therapy, but I do think there are a lot of people who you're like, you're a therapist?
I think it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
To what a Krafty would do is I'm like, well, of course you're a therapist because you are trying to resolve your own issues. And so you figured out how to make a profession out of doing it because it's much easier to tell somebody else what to do than to take the advice for yourself.
Yeah. That's what, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
No offense, Mom. I know my mom's a psychologist.
Oh, she is?
I know, you're great, Mom. I love you.
No, I mean, I'm in therapy. I believe in therapy.
We love therapy on the pod.
Very pro therapy.
Very few people have been on the pod who aren't in therapy at some point, actually.
Well, it's kind of funny. There's a lot of like similar, talking about the improv world. There's a lot of similar things that people go through, or the kind of people who are attracted to that, because improv is different from stand-up. It's like the people who are attracted to improv and who are good at improv are people who are good at community, at listening. Like the whole thing about improv is listening and agreeing with and trying to heighten energy. And that means that somebody who is good at trying to strengthen relationships. Like everything about improv is just a relationship on stage. And that's Del Close, who was the guy who was our mentor, who was my neighbor. I lived above him for several years. Everything was just about finding everyone's skill set and valuing it and heightening it. And that's like an interesting thing. I do think about that in terms of just going back to me as an aunt. I think there's something about me. Well, there's a couple things about being an aunt. I think there's something about I see the value. I do try to see the value in everybody, but I really see them in people who I've known since they were born.
Yeah.
And you just, you get such a kick out of seeing who people turn into and how they're oftentimes exactly who you thought they'd turn into. And then sometimes you'll see like a little kernel of something that you saw when they were a baby, but then you see it expand in their career or whatever. And you're just like, wow, I saw that. That was and I think that's what my mom got a kick out of with me. She saw that I was funny. And I have a niece who's not a comedy writer, but is on the list. And when she
on your list of people who could be.
Yes.
Yes, I love that.
And the people who couldn't be doesn't mean they're not great. They just, I don't think that's how
it's a very specific skill set. Yeah.
Yeah. But she used to wear a doll hat on her head when she was like 2. And she would just walk around. And she's the 5th out of 6. And I always really value the younger kids, specifically the next to the baby, but also the baby because
I'm the baby.
Yeah. Of how many kids?
Just 3. Just 3.
No, but that's
only 3.
But that's 3 is like such a great like triangulation of the middle child, the oldest child.
Oh yeah, you got all the stereotypes.
The classic, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the second to youngest of a big family, like for example, the one who used to wear. So my point with her being the second youngest, is there'd be like mayhem all around her, and those kids are closer in age, and she would just be quietly walking around with like a doll hat on her head. Not for anybody to notice, just for her own like edification of like, I'm wearing a doll hat. It was just so funny. And I would just see it and just be like, you wearing a doll hat? She'd be like, she didn't really talk. She kind of growled for a long time. She's another one who didn't talk. And
sure.
When she was a toddler.
Everybody else was talking so much. What did she need to talk for?
But they say that, but it's like, everyone needs to talk.
Yeah.
It's like you weren't being listened to.
Yeah.
Now I hear myself like interrupting people and being really loud, and I realize it's definitely a reaction.
Yeah, you've just been holding on to it for a really long time. You got a lot of stuff to say.
Yeah.
You're going to make up for lost time.
Also, but people didn't listen to you.
Yeah.
And you had to talk like that to be heard. And then I went from like a big family into TV rooms with like writing rooms with mostly men for a lot of my career, and being on improv teams with mostly men for a lot of my career. And the other day there was a going away party for somebody, and I was talking to Chicago. It was very male dominated. It was also everybody was really tall, and I was talking to somebody who's really tall, was in my Second City cast, was on my improv team, and I was talking, and he went, and I just thought, I just had this flash memory of how often he had done that to me.
Oh my God,
I just like lost my mind. And we were at like in the valley somewhere at a bar, like in the backyard of a bar. And he went, as I was talking, and I just went, what? Like, and he was literally like, oh my God.
What a fucking crazy thing to do in 2025.
But he's,
Yeah, I know.
he's done it.
Still.
Nobody's
ever said, yeah.
One time I was on a flight and there was some sports guy, huge, like 6'10", walking down the aisle, and his seat was like in the middle, and he just pointed at the guy in the aisle and he went, "You up." I got up, and I just thought that's what it's like to be really tall. It's just like nobody's gonna fight you. It's obvious the guy needs the aisle. He's 6'10" or whatever. It's just the.
But what does it say about that guy? It says a lot about.
But he couldn't even.
Travis Kelce would never.
Is he 6'10"?
I don't know. He's fucking huge, but he wouldn't ever talk to somebody like that. Is the point? And I'm not even like a football guy.
We won't find out about that for a long time.
We won't. That's true. Okay, so growing up, you were quiet. Oh wait, and I wanted to say one thing about this 5th of 6th walking around with the doll hat on her head.
Yeah.
I feel like some of the most successful comedians of all time are funny because they are focused on what they think is funny.
Oh, that's good.
Just like her, like in the sense of like, she's doing a bit for herself, right?
Yeah.
Like she's not trying to make other people laugh. She's like, I am doing something because I think it's funny.
Yes.
And like some of them are, avant-garde, like Andy Kaufman or something, who was like totally doing it for himself.
Yeah.
And then other people got brought into his world. But I think like that there is this strong sense of like self and character, and you have to think it's funny for it to be successful.
I think you're exactly right.
It's
kind of goes back to something I'm always trying to work on, which it's really hard for me, which is just being very authentic.
Yeah.
And it seems like I would be, but I'm really not, because I'm just covered in layers of like trying to get approval. And it's a constant battle. And I think that's something that, I hope you see it getting squashed out by the older people. Like, for example, so my sister who's her mom is the oldest daughter. She's so bossy. She's been bossy. Everything in our family was always like, how will it make her not explode? So that sister's very bossy. She's the oldest sister. The fifth, her little girl who's the fifth, I was talking to her one day. I think she was like 15 at the time. And I said, how's it going? And she's really like, so like another like sweet presenting person who's actually like probably like me, not that sweet, but is sweet, but like is a person.
Yeah.
And she was like, it's okay. I was like, she was in the Hamptons, and I said, I said, what's the matter? And she said, well, it's just my mom called me from upstairs and said, get in the car. And then I got in the car, and then we drove to the Hamptons, but nobody told me we were going to the Hamptons, and there was a party I was supposed to go to tonight with my friends back in New Jersey. And I thought, that is what it's like to be the youngest. You're just told.
Not considered.
You're not considered. You're told to get in the car. I rode in the back of a station wagon forever, backwards, forever on long car trips. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, where are you going to college? You're just like very much like,
yeah.
For a long time I was a bridesmaid, like the bridesmaid, just be quiet, just get in line. And so I actually, because I'm that person, I was able to say to my sister, Ellie had a party to go to and you didn't ask her, and she didn't even have her clothes with her. You didn't pack properly for her, and she's in the Hamptons and you didn't.
How did your sister take that?
She was like, I didn't, I think she was like, no, she knew. I was like, no, she didn't. And so, I mean, hopefully all I can do is sort of like say.
Be an advocate.
Happened. Yeah. But,
and you know what? Honestly, of all of that, the thing that probably is the most impactful is that she had somebody to tell that she missed the party and had somebody feel bad for her.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes that's all people really want, especially, I mean, kids and adults. Like, we just want somebody to like sit with us when we're having a feeling.
Yeah.
And when you've got a lot going on, like a million children, it's really hard to sit with one of them in their feelings.
Yeah.
Especially if they're like generally pretty easy.
The
easy kids get reinforced to be easy.
It's
because
the worst curse, curse of the sweet child. Like, even when I hear friends of mine describe their children and they'll say, oh, she's so sweet. I'm like, no, don't
do that to her.
Don't do that to her.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about not having kids, is that I do have like the 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah.
Where I'll have friends, like I have a friend who has a daughter who I'm very close with, who was like 13, and she was sort of in that. It's one of my favorite phases of development, which is like that. Our family calls it the grubby stage, because one of my sisters wore a sweatshirt that said "grub forever" every day for like a year.
Sure.
It's that thing where, like you're you haven't figured out your body. Your body's growing in weird ways. In this little girl's case, like she's just like, was sort of rounder. And
Yeah.
her mom said something about like, she's getting really fat. And I was like, no, no, no.
Never. No.
But you need the outside person to say, because the mom is being protective and is like, the world is cruel. But then you have to say, like, it really doesn't matter. And I think I have a lot of things about that are in response to not having kids and in response to my mom and in response to having older sisters who, my mom would say, like, would really value their looks, but I kind of got a free pass in a way. But, just like where I will always wear a bikini and I don't care. I really have I have like the opposite of like body dysmorphia where it's like body positive dysmorphia.
Yeah. Well, it's called body positivity.
Is it? I have that.
Yeah.
But it's just naturally where
it's what we're trying to have for everybody now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm also like, who cares? I'm not a model. And even if you're a model, it doesn't matter.
No,
Nothing
it
matters.
doesn't. Now, because you are this like aunt to so many or like de facto aunt, even if not officially, because you do really lock in with kids, you are genuinely interested in what they are up to. You want to know what they're into. You feel with them and for them if like something hard's going on. If you ever share with your friends like, hey, I think so-and-so is like having a tough time or like, don't say that or whatever. Do you ever get the shitty, well, you don't have kids, Laura, so you don't understand? Has anyone ever thrown that at you?
I'm a little bit more cautious with how I would give advice.
Yeah, you're gentle.
I would never say something to somebody who would answer me like that.
Yeah.
Anybody I'm talking to is somebody
who's
really
going to receive it.
Yeah, and also it's not my business. I mean, a lot of times like you'll see things happening. I mean, it's sort of like when there's a couple that's breaking up or somebody's cheating or something.
Yeah.
Or somebody's with somebody that you're like, wow, that is an odd match. I would not have imagined for that person. The thing is like everybody answers a need inside and everyone is lashing out for a reason.
Yeah.
And so, or they're saying things that maybe are just being a little thoughtless. So if somebody's saying something that's a little thoughtless where I can see, because I'm older and I've been through it and I've also just seen people growing up all around me, you just sort of, and I think if you don't have kids, you literally just see people growing up versus if you have kids are an extension of yourself. Yeah. So even when people say like, oh, I'm a great mother, you think, well, actually you're taking care of yourself because that child is part of you. Yeah. You grew that child, you birthed that child. When you die, that child, you're going to die because that child's pulling the plug. Like that's part of you. So when people are sort of proud of themselves for being a good mother, I just think like, well, what would the alternative be? You're going to be a bad mother? It's like when people say like, like, well, as a mom, I hate rape. You're like, well, what were you like before you had kids? Like, were you
right?
What is wrong with you? We're all humans on the planet.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So, but if you don't have kids, you don't have that. You don't have the thing that's the walking embodiment of parts of you walking around the earth. And so you're able to see and say like, well, this person is, I also will say, I really value how you raised your kids. Like I have a cousin who, they have 2 boys and they're the boys who call me Auntie Pretty, and they've raised their kids to be so like authentic and in themselves in a way that's just so amazing. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen that as much. I see it now with like new generations of kids, but like older kids, like even in my family, they've been sort of raised. You see everyone getting raised by like a part of the onion of how the parent was raised. And and you see like the mistakes that like my mom made. Like you see people reacting to how they were raised by my parents, like my parents were sort of like 50s parents. That's the other thing. My parents were older. Both my grandfathers fought in World War I. So, and my dad was a refugee from Czechoslovakia because he's Jewish. He was Jewish. And so there's just like, I did not understand my parents until I saw Mad Men. Like literally I saw Mad Men and I was like, all these things clicked together. I was like, wow. Oh, that's why my mom says stuff like this. Like, I'm from Evanston, which is like, I'm from a neighborhood in Evanston that's very like progressive. And my mom was like Betty Draper. She was exactly like Betty Draper without the smoking. And she wasn't a model when she was younger, but she was a lot like, she dressed up when my dad came home. She would like put on a pretty face and she would make him like dinner. He came home really late at night. My dad was Don Draper in a lot of ways, but not like as cruel or not like, but he had an ad agency. He was very handsome.
Wow.
Yeah.
He really was.
He really was. He smoked a pipe. He was gorgeous, I think. But people, I think objectively, my dad was a handsome guy, and he dressed beautifully, and he had gorgeous taste, and he, ran an ad agency, and he, in that era, and he, all that entails, I think.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I was never asked when I was growing up, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
Not once, not ever. Never, ever, ever.
Because it would just assumed you would be a homemaker?
Yeah, it would be, the dream was to be a well-heeled homemaker. And so consequently, having not been a well-heeled homemaker, my parents there was always a sense of like my dad, like my mom kind of got me more, but my dad was like, I don't understand. Just.
Was that hard for him? Because like when I think of Jill Talley, mutual friend who's also been on the pod, and I will link her episode in the show notes. She talked about how her parents also like didn't get this thing that she was doing, but they were kind of like, well, as long as you're self-sufficient and you pay your bills and you can pay your rent, and you're, go do your thing, Jill. It sounds like for him it was a little bit more of this like curiosity of like, what are you doing, Laura?
No curiosity. just like
disdain.
Disdain is too strong a word. Like sort of like, why?
Right.
Like he would
just didn't get it.
Didn't get it. His favorite job for me was my first job out of college. I worked at an ad agency, and by first job I mean 6 days after I graduated.
Wow.
My mom went to London. My oldest sister lived in London at the time, and she had some babies. I can't remember who was born at that time, but my mom was in London, and I was alone with my dad for the first time. I don't know where my little brother was, but it was just me and my dad. And he made me, my game plan was to like waitress and then go to Europe like in the fall. And instead he made me send out resumes, and I got a job interview, and I got hired in the first interview to be an account coordinator, which really meant secretary. And he bought me a briefcase. My mom went to Europe, came back. I was like tie-dye kid. She came back, and I had like a Brooks Brothers suit with like shoulder pad blouse, shoulder pad jacket, shoulder pad trench coat, a briefcase that I didn't know. Like I just had like bubblegum and People Magazine.
What goes in there?
Hairspray, bubblegum, Rainbow bubblegum, and People Magazine. And I would just carry it on the train and just.
To be fair, that is a briefcase I would like to have. That sounds like the perfect briefcase.
But like, what do you just carry? Like, what do you put in a briefcase? It's such a weird, like, I guess now we just have tote bags.
Yeah.
But I just remember holding it and just being like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. And having a purse. I just looked like I was in the movie Working Girl.
Sure.
And so I just typed all day, like all day. I just typed, and this was like, but there was like one computer at the agency, and basically you just typed. And I remember like missing this Rolling Stone Steel Wheels tour because my boss had given me a 30-page presentation, and there'd been a mistake on the first page, and I had to retype the entire presentation. So that's the era. I'm a really fast typist because I typed all day, and my boss very aggressively sexually harassed me all day, horrible guy. And when I quit, I mean, two things about that. When I quit because I was like, this is a boring job. I'm going to go to grad school. But my dad was like, he was always like, you missed out. You could have stayed at it was a place called Grant Jacobi. He's like, you could have been a Grant Jacobi. That was his biggest disappointment. He was so mad when I went to grad school. He didn't understand it. He was like, why are you going to graduate school?
So what were you, when you were in college, what were you studying?
English.
And were you doing improv then?
No, but I got into it. So improv didn't exist, really.
Right.
There was theater games, but that was different from long form improv. So I went to college. I was wildly unhappy at the beginning of college. I had like short hair. It was
the short hair will do it.
Well, it was Indiana University. By short hair, I mean like a crew cut. And
yeah.
It was Indiana University, and it was just like
not the place for you.
Not my scene. So I was really sad, and I went to the Bloomington Town Library, to rent blues records to listen to in my room. And there was a little sign on a corkboard saying like audition for this improv group, and it was like it didn't say improv group, it was like theater games, whatever. And I was familiar with that because I'm from Evanston, which is where the Piven Theater Workshop was, and I had not gone to Piven, but I'd been in this show in high school called Yamo, which is sort of like it's hard to explain, but it was like a comedic performance evening that had like different companies in it, like a dance company and acting company. I was in the acting company, and music. There was a company where they acted out fables, and it was
like a variety show.
Like a variety show, and it was a very big deal to get in. So I was really excited that I got to be in it. And anyway, I was familiar. My best friend went to Piven, took classes. I was familiar with what theater games were. So I was just sort of like, when I had auditioned for Yamo, it was my first foray into acting, really. And when I got into the acting company, I was like, oh, like everybody else was like a theater kid. And I was sort of like, oh, this is like, I like this. Like I can do this.
Yeah.
And then, so I was in college and I was on this dorm floor with it was just awful. It was just a horrible experience. And so I auditioned, and it was all townies in this group. It was a woman who was a Wiccan and now she probably...
Like as in a witch?
Well, there was a lot of like white witchcraft in Bloomington at the time. It was a large Wiccan population.
Had no idea. Okay.
Yeah, at the time.
Okay.
And I used to go to like Wiccan ceremonies and check them out and see what they were about.
I also want my listeners, if you are a woman listening to this, I want you to comment either on Instagram or on the show notes, did you have a witchy phase? Because if you didn't, I want to meet you. Because I feel like every girl at some point goes through a phase of like, maybe I am a witch.
Can I just tell you?
Yeah.
I'm a runner.
Yeah.
Before this back thing. And there's this area, and I don't even know what neighborhood it's called. Monterey Hills, maybe. I live in Highland Park.
Yeah.
I think it's called Elephant Hill. And there's just a huge flat expanse at the top. And every time I go by there, I think, oh, if I was a teenage girl and I had 3 friends and we could form a coven, we could totally like summon the winds. Or like every time you're there, you're like, this is where you practice like a spell.
Who among us hasn't tried to summon something?
Always.
Who among us?
I still I'm always trying to like outsmart traffic through a spell.
Sure.
I love spells.
Yeah.
And I did Dungeons and Dragons, and I was a 7th level leather-clad elf.
Excuse our 7th level leather-clad elf.
And my weapon was spells. Oh. And a wand.
Ooh.
But I love stuff like that. So anyway, so I went to this woman ran it and she had a child. I mean, it was this woman, I can't even explain what she looked like. I think it was a woman.
We think.
Nowadays, it would be somebody who probably identifies as non-binary, but a very early person for that, doing that. And then there was like a truck driver named Dale, and there was like a librarian, and the only other student in it was all townies, and then the student, this guy Brian Stack, who was a senior when I was a freshman, and we did improv. We just did improv games, and it was really fun. And that was just freshman year, and then it sort of disbanded. And then after college, I got that job at Grant Jacobi, and that was in a tall building in Chicago. And Brian Stack randomly worked at another ad agency a couple floors above me. And by the way, when I went to college, I also named myself Spike.
Sure. It's a time of reinvention.
Yeah, it's like, why didn't you have a lot of friends, Spike? I don't know. Why didn't you fit in, Spike, to Indiana University, where everyone had like huge hair? And but I ran into him, and he invited me to come see him perform in an improv show. And that was the first time I saw long form improv, and I was just blown away. I remember just thinking like, I want to do that. Like, what is that? It was just so amazing. And I lived with these 2 girls who I moved out because my college boyfriend, who I'd broken up with, moved in with my parents. So I like moved out right away.
Sure.
And I got an apartment like that day with 2 people I didn't know very well. They were 2 kind of horrendous girls. One time they went out of town, and they both had boyfriends, and they told their boyfriends they could have a party at my apartment, but they didn't tell me. And so I took a shower after work, and I got out, and there was like 50 guys in the house.
Terrifying.
And they were like, I guess you can have a beer. I mean, it was like bananas. But so, horrendous. So anyway, so then I ran into Brian, and he told me, he mapped out, he was like, if you want to get into this, take classes at a place called Players Workshop, and then go through the Second City Conservatory, and then go to Improv Olympic, because you'll have some background and you won't just go in there fresh, because it's kind of competitive and you want to sort of land on your feet. So I did that, and I made my first day at Improv Olympic, I made friends with like my oldest comedy friends, and just I got into that whole scene. So then I did Second City Conservatory, which is 5 levels of classes, and then I did, and I was working full time and going to grad school, and I don't know how I did it. And then I was doing shows, and I had rehearsals and stuff every night and performed.
What were you in grad school for?
English literature. Okay. I thought I would go into academia.
Sure.
And so but I loved it. And and also it was pretty interesting because everybody there was the person who put a hat on their head when they were little.
Yeah.
It was sort of like when you go to grad school and the first day of class, the teacher asks, says something and everybody raises their hand and you realize, oh, grad school is everybody who raised their hands in undergrad.
Yeah.
And improv is everybody who was like the weird little kid. I have a friend, Horatio Sanz, and
We know Horatio, or
know
I
him.
mean, I don't know him personally, but
an
what a
amazing
lovely guy.
person. He's amazing. But we call him Raj. And one day I was talking to one of his brothers and about why we call him Raj. And it's because they'd moved to a new neighborhood and the doorbell rang and some kids said, "Can Roger come out to play?" Because he had told them his name was Roger, which is just such a thing. Like that's improv people.
Sure.
That you're like, my name is Roger, after like Roger Healy from like I Dream of Jeannie or, whatever. But so anyway, I just found community and all the things that, I didn't realize that what people would always call me weird in college and groups of friends or, they just always thought I was weird.
Yeah.
And then you find out, no, you're just funny. And like, I remember somebody saying, is this another, like me doing a joke and somebody saying, is this another one of your lies? And then you realize like, you were just always frustrated growing up because my family also didn't do bits.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of bits. I actually don't love doing bits, but like I have bits with friends and
Yes, and you are part of this group of women who every Saturday or something do water aerobics together, and that chain that you guys are on, I've like seen snippets of the banter that goes on, and there's a lot of comedy women I know in that group.
Yeah,
that is some funny shit that's happening there.
Yeah, like that's I believe I like to do it in a where everyone's everyone's doing it. I can't stand when people do it nonstop.
Yes.
And also in places where you're like, yeah, I know that's a bit we had.
Yeah.
We're at the opera or whatever.
Right.
Can we not do it right now?
Yeah.
But then there's also the people when they grab onto a bit, like they won't let it go. And sometimes that's great. And sometimes you're like, dude,
yeah,
enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
My 5-year-old son right now is like really enjoying figuring out how to get a laugh. And then once he gets it, he just repeats the same joke like 50 times until everyone's like, for fuck's sake. But like, he's 5. So he's like, if he can get a laugh, he's going to figure out, he'll just do the same thing. Like he's not modifying it. He's just saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
A million times. And grown-ups do that too.
Yeah.
So you are in grad school, you're doing all this stuff on the side, which feels like, you found your people, you found your meaning. You're in this golden, I love how you just are like, my friend Horatio Sanz. I feel like you were doing that at a time where there were a lot of names people would know who went on to be performers that we would know.
Bananas. I have to stop saying bananas, but it's really like my favorite term.
It's very Midwest, I feel.
It's also just like so perfect for things because I'm trying to not say like as much.
Okay.
Always trying to grow.
Great.
But yes, everybody who I was coming up with, and it's funny because it was not a glamour. I mean, I did shows in the craziest places, and we did the craziest kinds of shows, and also it was not a famous thing. It was like very punk rock now.
Yeah.
Because the people who knew, and there was a large audience. The audience, I was there when the audience was small. I saw my eras where you saw the audience getting bigger. And you saw people, like I would go to the Walgreens and people would have gone to this show that I was a part of that had a bunch of us in it. And they would say, oh my God, you did that. You were the one who was an octopus on stage or whatever. That was so funny. Like, but at Walgreens, Chicago that happened at that time. But it was, people, one guy from our level, I kind of think of us as waves, like Jill, who you talked about. I'd never met her before, or I didn't go to Second City. My family wasn't like a Second City family, not a comedy fan family. I kind of thought of Second City as like a place where like sales teams went, like when they met their quota, and it was like a tourist place.
You hear that, Jill?
No, I mean, it's like that's. Yeah. I just didn't know.
It's a different crowd.
It was just not a thing that I thought of. I mean, of course now I'm like, it's an amazing place, but I did Improv Olympic, and that's where I was on teams. I did a couple shows at the Annoyance, but I was an Improv Olympic person, and I also did some outside shows, and but like back at that time, you could do an outside show. Like I did a show with a 3-person improv show, and it was in the basement of a cafe next to a walk-in refrigerator where like the busboy would come down in the middle of the show and just like look at us like we were crazy and like get a head of lettuce and like interact with him, and he'd just be over us. But there'd be like maybe like 50 people there, but you would get reviewed
Wow.
and people would come see it, and it was like a real thing.
Yeah.
And it became cool that you're in the basement of this cafe.
Right.
Or, for Improv Olympic, one of our, and everything it was like Second City was very separate from Improv Olympic, and it was very separate from the Annoyance. Like it was sort of like, and so one person, Adam McKay, went to Second City, and then a couple more people started. Rachel Dratch got hired, and I think Horatio. This is from my generation.
Yeah.
And it sort of broke, and everyone was like, oh, we should audition at Second City. And like the year that I auditioned and got hired, hundreds of people auditioned. The auditions were like 3 days long, and they hired, I think, 7 of us. And randomly, I was one of them, which I'm still always like, I can't believe I got hired. Like, that was amazing.
And that kind of was like a defining moment for you professionally, right? In terms of a pivot.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
It was everything. And my boyfriend at the time fell out of love with me because he was in med school and he didn't like the idea. And I got hired, and I had sort of a meteoric, like perfect, in my estimation, I had like a perfect Second City experience. I'd been on like house teams and stuff at Improv Olympic and done a lot of shows there. But when I got hired at Second City, some people, you get hired as an understudy for the touring companies. Then there was 3 touring companies and 2 stages at that time. And so I got hired, and I got put into a touring company fairly quickly, and I toured, and then I got promoted onto a stage pretty quickly. I think the whole time I was there was maybe like 2 years, but some people tour for like 6 years before they get on the stage, and they're there for like 4 more years on stage. And when I left for basically because of a breakup with that boyfriend. But I also remember thinking I'd just done a show that was really, really fun and great. And I didn't want to turn into one of those people who got like really bitter.
You wanted to Seinfeld it. You wanted to come out on top.
I loved my experience at Second City. I had a great time. Everything was sort of great. There was like bumps and stuff, but looking back, like my final show, I loved so much, and it was so fun to play every night. And, I'm very happy with how that went. And then, but it's funny, like Improv Olympic. So then people would get hired, and then Adam got hired to Saturday Night Live. And then I met people at Second City who I didn't know, like Scott Adsit, who's a really good friend of mine. And then they would get hired to things. And anyway, the bottom line is more and more, it just became like a funnel, And the year that I got hired at Second City, Boom Chicago started, which is like a comedy theater started by 2 high school friends of mine from Evanston. And that became another funnel of like a lot of people came out of Boom Chicago. And anyway, when I was working on a show that got nominated for Emmys at the Colbert Report, you'd go to the Emmys, and it was like I knew everyone.
A reunion. It
was literally like I knew everyone at the Emmys. And I remember also once going to see a live taping of Saturday Night Live, and I was just sitting there. It was like was it Saturday Night Live? Maybe it was like a live 30 Rock. I can't remember what it was. Now I'm thinking maybe it was a live 30 Rock. Did they do a live
Sounds
30
a dream.
Rock?
Maybe.
I think they did. It was Tina was there. Tina was on my team in Improv Olympic. Tina Fey.
No big deal, just Tina Fey.
Right. I mean, and she was. I remember she was working at the YMCA in Evanston, and I was in grad school at that point at Northwestern, and so most of my classes were downtown, but some were in Evanston, and so I would go there. I worked at a maternity clothing store during the day, would take classes, and then Tina and I went to rehearsal together, and I remember saying like, "I'll go with you because you might feel shy when you go in." And I'm like, she was fine. I didn't need to worry about like walking her into rehearsal.
But when you talk about the sort of archetype of this like girl who liked to follow the rules and whatever, and was like a good girl,
yeah,
she kind of, from what she has at least put out about herself in the public domain, seems like she also fits that profile.
Oh my God, 1,000%. Like she's really nice.
Yeah.
And Amy Poehler's really nice, and Rachel Dratch is really nice, and like Sarah Silverman, who's not an improv, is a stand-up person. She's really nice. I also think that more people who are nice tend to succeed than the assholes. Like,
well, you've also just named all women who are really nice.
No, but even the guys, like guys. Improv guys are mostly really nice. Like that tall guy who told me to shush earlier, he's still really nice.
Yeah.
He just is tall and is used to like privilege.
Sure.
Male privilege. But like he's a nice
still
guy.
A nice guy.
Yeah. Like I don't really know any super horrible people.
Well, this goes back to your point about collaboration, community, having to listen to people, hype people up. It's kind of hard to do that if you're a dickhead.
Yeah. And then the people who were sort of dickheads end up like falling away. Because
nobody wants to be on a team with them and collaborate with them. And
or a writer's room. Like, you don't want to sit all day with somebody who's a jerk.
I always joke for a writer's room, I would be a really good vibe hire. Like, because there's always like that somebody in the room that's just like good for the vibes.
I'm a vibe hire, but then the last job I worked on, my boss hated my vibe hire.
Oh.
It's funny, like, it's very like, I mean, that's a whole nother podcast, but it's always like very funny, it's a couple things. It's getting older and things that you did that were adorable.
Right.
Right. No longer.
Yeah.
People have no time, no truck for. And then also, like, just some people just, like, I remember, like, we'd split in, it was on Zoom, a lot of it. And so we'd split in other rooms. I'd be like, okay, let's pick a number between 1 and 5 and see who goes in which room or whatever. And he was just like, no, it's just this.
You and you. Yeah.
Like, just like they didn't. I'm always the person who brings in cookies.
Yeah. That would be me too, obviously.
But some people, like, I'm a big baker as well.
Yeah.
And some people, it just is. And so then also, like, there's also shows where I'm like, I know that it's going to not be, people won't like it if I bring in the cookies, but I really want to bring in the cookies because I just really like the cookies. And like,
people need the cookies.
You don't bring it because it's like not cool. And then
Sure.
finally you're in there long enough, you can be like,
I'm bringing the fucking cookies.
I made cookies. I made a lemon cookie. That's pretty good. Maybe, or sort of, but it's like the vibe thing is very tricky.
It is tricky. So, but I imagine, I was at the Daily Show as an intern, and I think the vibe there is similar to Colbert in the sense that would be a place where a cookie would be welcome.
Yeah. I mean, I think everything depends
on who's in the room. The mix of it's always a mix of people.
I think maybe from an intern, it's welcome.
Well, I was also interning during the 2000, whatever that was, 7 writer strike.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have a lot to do for like half of the time I was there.
Like John was just like talking and Stephen was talking. And
yeah.
Conan was spinning his wedding ring.
Yeah. There was like a lot of that time, but it meant we got like amazing quality time with everybody, like including John.
That was a weird strike. I liked that strike. That's the strike. I always think about that strike, of course, but that's the strike. We were non-union before that strike. I always worked like prior to like Colbert Report. I worked on a lot of Comedy Central and a ton of MTV shows. Everything was non-union, and Colbert was non-union. And then we joined the union during that strike, and then got residuals. After,
wow.
And that's and like international sales stuff, and like the writers got residuals finally, and that's how I was able to buy my house.
Big deal.
It was a big deal.
If you didn't have that house, you wouldn't be having this back problem by carrying your dog up the stairs.
Oh my God, you're right. It's the butterfly effect. Butterfly effect. Everything goes back. Everything.
You know what? Still better to have the house than not, I think. Yeah. Okay, so you are in this interesting position because you're surrounded by people who are sort of, everybody's interested in the same stuff, moving in the same direction of like really...
Are we talking improv?
Yeah, improv, and like moving out of improv into the either writing world or performing world, beyond that, in addition to that, I guess. You said it's mainly a male-dominated space at this time.
Yes.
So you're in your 30s, you're working in this male-dominated space. The men around you, I am assuming, are around the same age as you.
No.
Older? Younger?
Are we talking about Colbert Report?
Yeah.
Okay. There were 6 writers originally and 2 head writers. And one of the head writers was my friend Allison Silverman, and the other one is my friend Rich Dom. So they were, I don't know, Allison was younger than me, a couple of years younger. And then most of the guys, there's one guy who was like a Second City guy who had been like old friends with Steven, who was a little bit older than me. And then there was another guy who went to my high school who was probably a couple years younger than me. And then a lot of the other guys were really young. Okay. Like had just graduated college a couple of years, maybe.
Wow.
One guy had just graduated college. One guy, but my point is
there was a spread.
There was a spread, but it was really funny because they were, some of the people were like, it was, the fact that it was a non-union show, I was always like writing jokes about, well, my writers don't have health insurance. Right. And they were sort of like, I don't know, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Because your parents are still paying for your health insurance.
Let's ask me in a couple of years.
Maybe your rent. And this is like pizza money. And it's different to have pizza money versus
life money.
Yeah.
So in this spread are some people, and even before Colbert, when you're working on these other shows, are people like having kids, starting families?
Oh, so it's interesting because, so I went to Indiana University. My friends from college, and that, so I think of everything sort of in waves. Obviously, my family's different waves of my family. Improv, there's different waves. And then like weddings and babies and families, there's like the first wave was my college friends who all had kids. A lot of them got married right out of college, started having kids right away. Then like the yuppies who I sort of was with like in Chicago when I worked in advertising and, was in the improv scene, but I also was in academia and I taught like at DePaul and at Columbia, and those people had got married like in their late 20s and started having kids like in their early 30s. Improv people got married like in their late 20s, early 30s and started having kids like in their mid 30s. And then, so when I got to Colbert, I was single. And it's funny because I remember like dating people and having them say like, you're so clingy. It's like you want to settle down. And I was like, yeah, I do. Like my biological clock is like
screaming
I'm
at me,
crying at red lights. Like I wanted to have kids. I love.
Yeah.
And those people are now like older dads who have toddlers who are like my age. Because then there's like the phase of like a lot of comedy guys get married much, much later to somebody 20 years younger that they're proud of themselves because they're like,
look what I bagged.
Like, she's in her 30s. I mean, it's like they are all sort of like, well, I'm an older dad. And I'm always like, you didn't have to be.
Right.
Like I was there. A lot of my friends were there.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends ended up having kids, but through extraordinary things that like random things. But it's funny to me that when I was little, I really wanted to have kids.
Yeah.
I had names. I really wanted to be a mom and a housewife, but mostly a mom.
Yeah.
And it's funny that all my friends were like, I don't know, kids are fine. They all have kids. And then they're all the ones who are like, it's really hard being a mom. And me and my childhood best friend also doesn't have kids. And we always laugh because whenever somebody says something about their kids, I'll say like, I think I replaced the word yacht.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my yacht got up early. Because if you want something, you're like, I don't want to hear about like, oh, you have to get up early. You have a kid. Like, fuck you.
Well, I remember once you were just telling like an anecdote of, I don't know, one of your 5,000 nieces or nephews being difficult and, one of your siblings mentioning that it was difficult. You just go, I'll take the kid. Give it to me.
Yes.
Give it to me. I'll have it.
Nothing shuts down someone faster. And honestly, I would take their kid.
Yeah.
Fine. I'll take anybody's kid. Like I would be like, even teenagers when they're like, oh, teenagers, I'm like, have them, I'll
send them over.
Send them to LA. I'll send them to school out here. And like, I would love it. I'm in.
It is genuinely, I mean, it's obviously, I can imagine fucking heartbreaking to want something like that and not get it.
Yeah.
And also the way you have turned this into a superpower for your wider family, like to have the village. I think so many people right now are struggling to build their village and have that real like ride or die support for their family because it is hard raising kids. And for so long, we didn't do it alone. We did have our aunts so close that were so deeply invested, our uncles, our grandparents. And as the nuclear family has kind of moved away from wherever they grew up, that's harder and harder to come by.
That's a huge, huge topic. That's huge.
Right.
It's not discussed enough. It's kind of funny because I don't like when, especially like my older comedy guy friends who I would have had kids with, who have kids, are like introduce me to their kids and then they say, and this is Auntie Pretty or Auntie Laura. And I'm like, no, I'm Laura Krafft.
Yeah.
You're calling me Laura Krafft.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, I will totally be their Auntie Laura. Like that's fine.
Yeah.
Because I really do believe like there is a role for people. I mean, I feel like I'm overselling my aunt thing. Like I am ride or die for my nieces or nephews.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not overselling that because I am.
I don't think you're overselling it.
Well, it's funny because as people get older, there's also people turn into grown-ups.
Right, and they need you in a different way.
Like maybe they have politics that are wildly opposed to yours. Maybe they don't get shots that you believe people need vaccinations. Like it's that kind of thing where you're sort of like, maybe, like I've had some startling like divides
that
I never saw coming.
Yeah.
With people I would still give them a kidney. I love them, but where I think because I idolize families, my family and my nieces and nephews and everybody so much, when they do disappoint me, they disappoint me hard. And that
nothing could be more close to a true parenting experience.
It's so shattering. And it's just sort of like, that is one thing that I guess I feel sort of like, because I am having these issues with some people where I'm just sort of like, how could you have these different thoughts from me that are so different and that I see them as being so wrong and you see them as being so right? Like, how did that happen? That's a hard part of life. But another thing is that we do spread around the world, and there is a role, you know, and I think my friends' kids, a lot of my friends' kids, like I tend to talk to the friends' kids at parties, and, you know, I think they know that they, like, I always tell them, like, I am that, I'm there. I'm the person that you could call. And a lot of people call it like a godmother.
Yeah.
You know, I have a godson who just passed away, who was 15, and our whole community was just like, and is still, and will always be. But I never said godson. But I don't know because there's not a definition for that person who's like your friend's kid, who you're ride and die for them, and you're not their biological aunt.
My husband and I talk about this all the time, because I have people who I'm like, yeah, you're not blood to me, but you're for sure my kid's aunt.
I mean, I married their parents. I was their minister.
Yeah.
I, babysat his sister when he was born. Like,
that's an aunt.
It's an aunt, but but the kids in that family, they're like, no, you're a godmother. I was like, oh, and they called me godmother. And I was like, they named me godmother.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a great term, because there's like a ton of kids, that family specifically. They are a family to me. I would, do anything for them, and other friends' kids I would just do anything for, and so you have like your own nieces and nephews, and who I would do anything for, and I'm very protective of. And I think that's part of the problem is some of my nieces and nephews, the thing that other relatives voted against directly affects them.
Yes.
And you're sort of like, how can you do this thing? How can you have this thought that is going to affect this person that I love so much? Why do you not? And that's the other thing you also realize is that not everyone is a great aunt.
Yes, correct.
Not everyone is everything. Like some people are a good wife and not a good mother.
Yes.
Some people are a good sister and not a good aunt.
Yeah.
There's all these different, like, good daughter, terrible
ex,
whatever the thing is, terrible wife or husband, and that's everybody. So everybody has their own parents. Everybody has their own nieces and nephews. Like I am very invested in mine. I often wonder, would I be as invested in my oldest nephew just had a baby. So I'm a great aunt, actually. And she's so gorgeous. And honestly, the most beautiful child you've ever seen. But I was talking to him and his wife is one of 7. And she comes from a huge family. And she was like laughing because we're talking about different nieces and nephews. And she was like, God, you always say the nicest things about everybody. And I was like, right. She's like, but I mean, you really love your nieces and nephews. And I said, yeah. Like I would.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all extraordinary. Like people, and there's such a range.
Yeah.
I also, in terms of writer's room, I am the person though, because I have such a range of like lives I'm invested in and know a lot about. I am the person who somebody's like, oh, I wonder like what that's like. I'm like, well, I have a nephew who's a rapper. Well, I wonder what that's like. I have a nephew who's in the role. I have a niece who's a.
You have a lot of life experience to draw upon.
Yeah, or I can just call somebody and say, like, what's it like to be like a ballerina in the Royal Ballet? What's it like to be in a punk band and work as a mailman during the day? What's it like to be like a real estate person internationally? Or, like there's such a wide range of what people do and such a wide range of ages. Like my oldest nieces and nephews are 36 and my youngest is 13. So there's like, that's a huge range and,
But I think, I don't think you're overselling the aunt thing. But B, it's only now that I'm in this chapter of life. Like my sister, I am obsessed with her. She lives in Florida. Like Is she
older?
She's older. Because I'm the baby. She would give my kids any organs required, even if she still needed them. Yeah. She loves them so much. And I know it kills her that she's not closer because she wants to be able to do all of the little stuff. Her kids are older. And my brother, his kids are older and he's here. Sometimes I think it's like because
he's in LA?
He's in LA.
Oh, nice.
But I think because sometimes it's like the two sisters, like there's something about our feeling of ownership of each other's children that is like that much more heightened. I can't really explain it. But I'm like now in this chapter where I'm really valuing and appreciating the importance of like intergenerational friendship. Because like everyone at my stage of life who's raising kids my age is all going through the same shit at the same time. And we're all just trying to like stay afloat or deal with our own stuff. Whereas I'm finding it extremely comforting to talk to people who are in different stages of life, who have different experiences, who can kind of provide a counterbalance to that. Because we're all like running around like chickens with our heads cut off. And it's kind of nice to be able to like, like even Jill taking 5-10 minutes or Tom talking to my kids about whatever it is they're into. I'm like, okay, that gives me a 10-minute breather. And it's like helping them to build different kinds of relationships because we're not in that thing where we're all close together anymore.
And also, like, I think the other thing is, like, young people like me and Jill from big families, who are older, like, we also, like, I actually don't mind. There's also the thing that younger people are really weird about their time. You know,
Yeah.
I see people, like, I don't mind. I mean, I genuinely don't mind, like, taking your kids to soccer. If you're, like, overwhelmed, I'll be like, yeah, it's fine. It's no skin off my teeth. If I'm home and I'm writing, I can take an hour
But
off.
you're totally right about that point of being
very precious with your own time.
and self-conscious
like,
about asking for the help from other people. Like, because you
don't want to do the help, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
And I think older people, like, it's sort of like when people will be like, oh, you're so thoughtful. I'm like, I'm really not. It's
just not a big deal.
It doesn't
in
bother
your head.
me. I like making people cozy. I like making people happy. I don't care. Like, I really don't care. I'm that person. And, you know, like, I will help set up the party for the whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, just ask me. Or don't. And I'll say, do you want me to help? And they'll be like, no, I'm fine. And I'll say, do you want me to help? Like, it's kind of like converting to Judaism.
Yeah.
You have to, like,
you have to keep asking
times. And then people are like, and then you're sort of like,
she means it.
Yeah. But also, like, it's fine. Like, it's all, and, you know, it's sort of at the same time that even like when you're walking me up to your insanely gorgeous house and you're sort of like, oh, it's just a work in progress. And I was just like, what is happening? Also, like, when are we going to get to the phase where you're like, I live in this fucking amazing house? Like,
I do that too sometimes.
I mean,
depends
I know
on
you
the
can't
day.
say that to somebody and be like, look at my amazing house, but because it's kind of like, you know, you risk
cringe. Yeah.
But
now I want to ask you one final question.
Has this made sense? I feel like we're all over the place.
Listen to a couple of the episodes and you'll feel just fine.
Okay.
Promise.
Okay.
This is my final question. Now, when somebody sees somebody like you in the wild who is an incredible aunt who never had kids of their own, what do we not want to hear from them? What do we not want to hear them ask or say?
Oh my God, so much. I remember one time I was in a meeting for a job and the guy was sitting on the edge of his desk. He was a big writer guy. And he was just like, so, kids? And I said, no. He goes, husband? And I said, he goes, you married? And I said, no. And he went, huh. And I was like, yeah, huh. Like, that is just such a...
That feels like a good place to start with a no, as a no.
I feel like just people just don't want to hear, I don't want to hear anything. You don't know. It's sort of like when somebody's passed away who's close to you.
Yeah.
Or you've gone through a breakup.
Yeah.
And somebody's like, what happened? And you're like, really?
Yeah.
He didn't clip his toenails and he didn't take a shower. And then he took the laundry and he threw it on the lawn. Like, I don't even know. Like, the way, it's sort of like when you meet somebody and you're like, they're the top of an iceberg of generations of people. You're only going to meet the tops of like little icebergs, right? That's who people
I love
are.
that. Yeah.
And things of like the number of times I've, you know, played with someone's baby. Like, I love like kids and I love babies. And they've been like, oh, you're so good with children. You should adopt. Have you thought about adoption? Adoption is, like, they say the word like you've never heard the word.
Right. Oh, I never heard of that before.
Let me write that down. It's adoption or adoption. And then you're like, adoption is so hard.
And specific
and to be an only lady. What's that called? A single woman.
Yeah. Single mom.
An only
parent.
lady. I like only lady.
I like only lady.
Maybe I'll be the only lady. But a single woman to adopt is like really difficult because people are, A, the system is trying to keep families together, which is ultimately good.
Yeah.
B, international adoption is really slowed, which is also good.
Yeah.
C, when someone's giving their baby up, they don't want to give their baby up to another single mom.
Right.
Because they're a single mom. And oftentimes, for the most part, that's why they're giving their child there in a circumstance.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's somebody who has a ton of kids and they can't handle it anymore. I feel like those days are sort of gone.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's more like maybe they're having issues that they hope to work through and get the child back or something. But for the most part, people, you know, want to give their kids to a family or two people at least. And so now with like where there's same-sex marriage and same-sex couples and like you want two people. And honestly, you know, I think that is like sort of, you just need, I mean, right now I have a bad back and I have two dogs, right? So that's not children. I hate when people say, well, you are a mom, you have dogs. I'm like, no, I'll put those dogs down one day and I would never put a child down. Like someday I'm going to walk those dogs in and come out with a collar. I will never do that with a child. It's not the same. I didn't birth them. I don't look at them. I love them. I really love my dogs. I don't like the people who bring their dogs everywhere and they're sort of like, well, he's like my baby. And you're like, not in the office. Like now the office smells like dog pee. And like, just like get a dog walker. Like I love my dogs.
Yes.
Like I'm like, they're dogs.
Yes.
And like, I remember once, like I left my dogs at my sister's house while I was finding an apartment in New York. And she was sort of like, do they like this? And I'm like,
they're dogs.
They're dogs. Just feed them and like let them out a couple times a day. And like, that's all they're living a good life. They're good. They're happy. They're good. But so it's also this sort of the thing of like, just, I guess my advice would be just shut up. And I'm learning that for myself. It's always my advice. My birthday's at the end of June. I love them. Like, I just, my birthday. So obviously I always make resolutions and I'm obviously not where I have resolved to be. But every year my resolution is just shut up. Just shut up. Because I do talk too much. And sometimes I'll hear myself saying something and I'll say, I'm really sorry. I don't disregard what I just said because I'm hearing myself and I just need to shut up. And sometimes it's like oversharing over, when writing that line between like when people ask me things or when I will hear myself asking that or similar things. I never would ask things like, why didn't you have kids? But I will ask, certain things or I'll tell too much about something. And I'm just like, Laura, just shut up.
Just shut up, everyone.
That's my advice for,
I think that's a good life credo in general. This has been so much fun. When I met you and heard you talking about your nieces and nephews, there was just this thing in me that was just like, everyone should get to have a Laura. Like everyone should get to have that in their life. So I really appreciate it that you are part of 22 children's villages or something crazy like that.
Can I just also say?
Yeah.
I just also have to say, just in case any of my nieces and nephews hear this, when people like say, what do your nieces and nephews do? I often will point out the ones who are performers.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who I value just as much who have jobs that are like,
Guys, she's obsessed with
company.
You. Yeah, she's obsessed with you. All of
you. They're looking for a job or they want to go into camp council.
She's obsessed with you. She doesn't care what you're doing for a job.
I don't care what you do for a job. I'm proud of all of you. You're all really amazing. And yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you, Laura. This was so much fun. I had a blast.
I had a blast too.
Team, I need your help. If you love it here, please like and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the Substack for full access to this episode's show notes and join the discussion. And of course, follow me on Instagram at mutha, mutha.life for a daily look at all things mother. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another Chat in the Closet. This podcast was produced by Mother Life, music by Ronan Landa. See you next time.